The fisheries sector is warning fisherfolk who are against the fixed dates for the closed season concept in Ghana to stop interfering with its implementation. Government has announced no fishing by artisanal fishermen will be permitted from May 15 to June 15, 2019, with the whole of August declared no fishing period for industrial trawlers. Speaking during the launch of the 2019 fish closed season in Accra, Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture Elizabeth Afulekwe says the dates were decided by most of the fisherfolk after several meetings with her outfit, and it will therefore not be changed. Efua Evans Chinwe reports.
The issue of a closed season has always been controversial, with diverse opinion on how and when to observe it. The Fisheries Minister said the May-June date was settled on after broad consultations. She spoke at a news conference this morning.
I must admit that we believe science has told us, and the fishermen themselves have also given us reasons to believe what science has told us. So we work with science. We depend on science. It is true that the peak production period is within a certain period, which peaks in August. It peaks in August. So we would have expected that the closed season would have been for all the fleets, the inshore fisheries, the artisanal sector, and the industrial sector would have all agreed to do the closed season in August when there's peak production. Unfortunately, the artisanal sector believes that their festivals are really important to them, and so they chose the 15th of May to the 15th of June. The reason why we agreed with what the suggestion that they came up with is that there's some minimal production around that time.
In an exclusive interview with Kojo Yankson, Madame Afulekwe denied claims that Chinese are involved in trawling, which is not permitted by law.
Yes, so that's why we are beefing up the enforcement levels.
There aren't many of them, operating in Ghanaian waters, less than 70. Less than 70 trawlers are registered operating in Ghanaian waters.
Not less, a little more than.
What figure do you have?
We have 74.
74, okay. That's a finite number. Only one of them is owned by a Ghanaian, I understand.
I'm not too sure about that, because we don't license vessels for foreigners.
Right. Yes. So actually, as far as you understand, they are all owned by Ghanaians?
Yes, yes.
There are no Chinese owners?
Ghanaian companies that, I would not entirely say. Well, we license them for Ghanaian companies, Ghanaians. We license them for Ghanaians. If a Ghanaian has an agreement with a Chinese company, if a Ghanaian company agrees with a Chinese company to do business, okay, it doesn't really mean that there isn't a Chinese involvement.
But that would be unlawful, wouldn't it?
I don't think so. Our laws allow hire purchase agreements.
Meanwhile, the Canoe Fishermen Association, in a letter to the minister, say they will not participate in the closed season because the date announced was not agreed on. But Madame Afulekwe has made it clear that government will not change the May-June date for artisanal fishermen to observe a closed season.
So we continued from last year till today. And so we cannot have any small group of people coming after the announcement of the closed season to say that, no, we will not accept the date, and that we would rather go back to the August that was suggested last year. The state cannot be held to ransom by any small group of people. We cannot be going back and forth on this decision. We have to be focused. We have to work very hard to achieve results. So The date has come from the fishermen themselves. The government has accepted the date, and we will follow through with the dates.
Now, the closed season has become necessary as scientists, as you have actually heard, have warned the consistent depletion of fish stocks in the last few decades will leave Ghana with no fishes at all in its oceans by the year 2020, which is just next year. For the country's fisherfolk, this doomsday projection becomes so real each time they embark on their fishing expeditions. One fisherman Joy News spoke with returned after spending the whole night on the sea with just 2 tiny fishes in his net. Niakwe tells Joy News this has become the regular pattern in recent times.
It's a Wednesday morning here at Jamestown, one of the popular fishing communities in the Greater Accra region. Many people are just waking up to the day, but for the fishermen here, they've been on the sea throughout the night. Among the fishermen pulling and pushing their canoes here at the beach is Niakwe. Ni has been a fisherman for years. After several hours on the sea, he settles at the beach trying to see if luck smiled on him. He's been removing the catch from the net with the support of his colleagues. Today isn't a good day for him. At first, we used to have good catch, but these days we hardly get any catch. We labor in vain. Our day starts at 2 a.m. We go and roam, but we often come back with empty nets. This is all we got today. His catch is nothing to boast about. He throws his hands in despair and ponders over what the fishing industry has become. He strolls away home, talking to himself, thinking about how he will feed the 14 children he has. Back home, he's met by one of his youngest sons, Theo. It is not only Ni who goes through this almost every day. The stocks in the sea have dwindled, and the fishermen seem to be at the receiving end. Poverty has now become endemic, and they want government to help them find alternative means of livelihoods. From Jamestown in Accra, my name is Richard Kwejunya for Joy News.
The Minister for Fisheries, Elizabeth Afolekwe, has admitted that May-June is not the best time to enforce a closed season for inshore fishers, as there is only minimal breeding during that period. In an exclusive interview with Kojo Yangsing, the minister acknowledged the peak breeding season of August is the best time to implement a closed season. Madam Afolekwe explains the ministry's rationale for implementing a closed season at a time when its impact would be minimal.
It is towards the upwelling where the cold water from the bottom of the sea comes up, to the surface and provides greens or food for the fish to consume around July, August. So there's a lot of production of food, and then the fish also get pregnant and they spawn at that time, around July, August. It peaks in August, yes. So we would have chosen August, which is the best time for the close season. That is the peak of the reproduction season. But the fishermen themselves have chosen May, June. We reluctantly accepted this date because it has been very difficult trying to get the fishermen to accept to do the close season, because they have festivals around the time where we chose to do the close season. So because of their festival, for the start, they have accepted to do it within a minimal production period, a fish production period. We expect that gradually, when they see the benefits will not be seen largely within a month of close season. But as we do it continuously over the years, as we institutionalize the close season and do it yearly, we'll see improvements in the build-up of the stocks. So this is just the beginning, and we expect that in the coming years, the fishermen again would say that, oh yes, we have seen some improvement in the stocks, and so we would like to shift it closer to the peak production period. We accepted the May 15th to June 15th by the inshore and artisanal fishers, also because the industrial trawlers have agreed that they want to do it in the peak production period, and they exploit heavier the resource. Their levels of exploitation are higher, much higher than the canoe fisher.
Now, in spite of the law explicitly banning trawlers from fishing inshore, the minister admitted that trawlers were illegally catching the fast depleting inshore fishes.
For some time now, some of the trawlers have flouted the regulation, and they are doing surface trawling. At least when we do the close season, it will mean that during August and September, there will be no exploitation of the pelagics. That is what it means. We've been trying to get these trawlers to stop doing the surface trawling, but some of them are able to outwit the system and use the fishing gear that is used to do surface trawling. Now we've brought on board gear technologists. We don't have enough gear technologists, fishing gear technologists in Ghana. We have just a few. Just recently we got them engaged, and we are training. They are in to train more gear technologists, so that when the trawlers are monitored, especially during the close season or after the close season, when they are monitored and you are found to be using the wrong gear, then we can, arrest you and apply the sanctions.
The minister was also asked about illegal Chinese and foreign involvement in trawler fishing.
Licensed vessels for foreigners.
Right.
Yes.
So actually, as far as you understand, they are all owned by Ghanaians.
Yes.
There are no Chinese owners.
Ghanaian companies that, I would not entirely say. When we license them for Ghanaian companies, Ghanaians, we license them for Ghanaians. If a Ghanaian has an agreement with a Chinese company, if a Ghanaian company agrees with a Chinese company to do business, okay, it doesn't really mean that there isn't a Chinese involvement.
But that would be unlawful, wouldn't it?
I don't think so. Our laws allow hire purchase agreements. Our laws allow that.
So what are you saying?
Agreement. But we, as the Fisheries Ministry, we license them for Ghanaians.
So what you're saying?
When a Ghanaian company comes and says that I want to license my vessel, we will not refuse that Ghanaian company. But when there's a hire purchase agreement with a Chinese company, that is not us. That is not the Fisheries Ministry that is, doing that.
So the Chinese are allowed to hire Ghanaian trawlers for fishing in Ghanaian waters.
What would you do if you want to enter into a business and you don't have the resources to purchase the vessel outright?
No, I'm checking. Is it lawful?
To have a hire purchase agreement. Our laws allow hire purchase agreements.
So the Chinese can hire a Ghanaian trawler and fish in Ghanaian waters.
It's a Ghanaian company that we license. We license for Ghanaians.
So if a Chinese company hires a Ghanaian trawler to fish in Ghanaian waters, is it legal or illegal?
Maybe you have to go to the law to check that because
You're the fisheries minister.
Yes, the fisheries minister is saying that I am licensing for Ghanaians. So if there's a Chinese behind the Ghanaian, that is not what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the Ghanaian who is licensing the vessel for himself.
Well, joining us for some analysis on the implications of this decision by government to choose this particular close season is Professor Kwabena Yangsing. He is chairman of the Scientific and Technical Working Group of the Sustainable Fisheries Management Project. They essentially advise government as to when the closed season should be implemented. And he's joined us. Thank you very much, Prof, for making time to speak with us. Now, how do you feel that despite all the advice you have given government essentially has gone contrary to your advice? We'll try and re-establish the connection there with Professor Kwabena Yangsing, but staying with the fishing story. Some fishermen at Elmina in the central region are demanding explanations from the National Petroleum Authority and government why the color and content of the premix fuel distributed to them has changed in recent times. According to the fishermen, the current content of the premix fuel sold to them is causing their outboard motors to break down and deny them their livelihood. They are also protesting the cost of the fuel they say is well over what they settled on with the NPA. At a news conference at Elmina on Tuesday, their spokesperson, Ma Numa Kwasin, said government should rethink the closed season it seeks to implement this year.
Fishermen from Elmina, now today they've gathered here. They have a message that from January, they have noticed some changes in the premix fuel that is sold to them, and they are not happy with it. They are asking government and the NPA to come clear why there is no oil in the premix fuel, and then why the premix fuel has no color, because what they know is that the premix fuel has a color and there is an oil in it. Now, these are two premix fuel that I have here. There is the current one that is being supplied. It has no color, it has no oil in it, and the fishermen are complaining bitterly. This is the color of the premix fuel. The fishermen say they know. It has a color blue and there is oil in it. And they are asking the NPA why the situation is so.
No, I want that. 50 January by February, petrol will come hanu. The whole Ghana petrol no. You would have color be our. I know. You would have oil be our. And the Pere be a banner there.
It is extremely surprising that the premix fuel that is supplied to us since January has no color and oil in it. The color used to be blue. We are demanding answers from government and the NPA. Secondly, we want to ask the NPA if it is their decision to make us pay money for 5 gallons when indeed we are supplied 4 gallons of premix fuel.
No, today, you better be NPA for that. I want what's the petrol no 4 gallons, so for 5 gallons.
So the fishermen here are distraught. They are throwing a challenge to government to seize the petroleers on the sea for like 6 months. It is in that case that they would want to agree with government to close the season. Otherwise, they are not going to agree to the closing of the season because they see that there will not even be any impact at all. So they want government to stop the petroleers and then improve upon their livelihoods.
I was about to know. Me feel that on no condo there was about to pum. The price to 1 month. 1 month they me sure there.
I disagree with them on this close season. I think they have their own motive for doing this. This will not have any impact. Me feel that one
bibi na wapere why na why ntina work there what to pum 1 month. Na ye there what to pum 1 month na na ma bepunum.
Ma me me you me bi kwa. Obo be 35 years. No more 6 years. Masa.
I have been in this fishing business for the past 35 years. Look at the petroleers. They have been given legitimacy by government to destroy the sea. and they want to stop us from getting our daily bread. When they close the season and they are still engaged in this trawling, what impact will it have on our sea? They should allow us to go on with our business. They are asking, or they are quizzing the Minister of Fisheries whether if he goes on leave for 1 month, she will not be paid. If she will be paid, then they are demanding that the fishermen who are also going to lay down their tools for 1 month, they are also expected to be paid.
That was Richard Kojunyakun with that report. Let's return to our interview with Professor Kobna Yangsing. He's the chairman of the Scientific and Technical Working Group of the Sustainable Fisheries Management Project. Thank you very much once again, Prof, for making time to speak with us. So I was asking earlier, how does it feel that your advice essentially has not been taken?
Yes. I feel very disappointed. Not I alone, but members of the Scientific Working Group.
So now that we're deciding to implement...
And also the rest of the plants who are...
All right. Now that we're implementing a closed season at a time when there's going to be minimal impact, what are the implications, or what is likely to happen? Right, Prof, let me ask the question again. I'm asking that now that we're implementing a closed season at a time when we're going to have minimal impact, what is likely to be the implications? Right, we would have to take another break, and hopefully when we return we can fix the challenges with that connection to Professor Kobna Yangsing. You're watching Joy News Prime, but still ahead in the bulletin, Joy News is learning of the death of a cadet at the Customs Academy at Petoi after he collapsed during a welcome drill at the training institute. The death comes amidst criticisms of the drills recruits of the security agencies endure. And also in the bulletin, we'll be bringing you business news. And in business, Ghana Revenue Authority finally yields to demands of the importers and pegs dollar exchange rate for port transactions at 5 cedis, 8 pesos for the next 3 months. We get reactions from spare parts dealers at Aposokai.
They're supposed to review it every Tuesday, and as at yesterday, they still haven't reviewed it. They are still using the 5.08, so we are comfortable with that arrangement also.
Stay tuned, we'll be back in a bit. Welcome back to Joy News Prime. We're going to our top story, which is government settling on the date for the 2019 closed fish season. Despite concerns, the purpose of the ban will not be achieved during the advertised date. We're returning to our interview with Professor Kobna Yangsing. He's the chairman of the Scientific and Technical Working Group of the team that advises government on the dates to be used. Now, thank you once again, Professor Yangsing. This time we're getting you on phone. I hope you can hear me clearly. So you have already told us how disappointed you are that essentially you advised government and government did not take your advice and went with a different date for the closed season. I was asking, what will be the implications of government deciding to go with a closed season that would have minimal effect? Hello, Professor Yangsing. If you can hear me, I'm asking, what do you think will be the effects of the closed season we have established now, especially when that's not what you advise government to do?
Yeah, the May-June closure, I feel may not produce any significant effect on our fishery.
So then you've already indicated that by 2020 we're going to have a depletion of our fish stocks. Does that bring the date any closer, or that bring the deadline any closer?
Yeah, that is our projection. Our projection indicates that if by 2020 we have not put in place the right measures, the small pelagic stocks are going to collapse. And the 2020 deadline, is either plus or minus, because in science, when we give a deadline, it can be either +1 or -1 or +2, -2. So we are now in 2019.
Yes.
And if it is -2 or -1, the patient might already be dead.
So as it turns out now, I want to know, for how long have you been advising governments, by the way? It turns out that this is not the only government you have advised on the closed season.
Sorry, how long?
How long have you been advising or giving this advice to government about the closed season?
Yeah, this was as far back in 2015. The latter part of 2015, we made a presentation to the Fisheries Commission. And after the presentation, you know, they were very happy. They clapped for me. But then they said that the then minister had already announced that the trawlers were going to be closed in November of that year. And that 2016 being election year, if the minister should go back and announce that the fishery was going to be closed in August 2016, it would be political suicide. And so I don't even know whether the minister was informed about our presentation and our recommendation for the closure. But we were told at the Fisheries Commission that it will be political suicide for the minister to go back and announce that there was going to be a closure in August of 2016. But then after the election, we tried to get in touch with the new minister, but for a whole year we couldn't. So it was only March of 2018 that we managed to get the deputy minister and a few other officials from the ministry. We made a presentation to them, and they were convinced that there was a need to close the season in August. That was in March. And so we thought that immediately they would put in place measures to get the fisher folk aware of the impending closure. But the closure was announced in July, and I think we are all aware about the resistance that followed that announcement. And eventually it was cancelled. And so we thought that if the closure is going to come on this year, it was going to be in August. But all of a sudden, we heard that they were going to close it in May, June. And, you know, the Scientific and Technical Working Group, we met in Accra on 13th and 14th of March this year. And at that meeting, we invited the president of the NAFAD, the National Fisheries Association of Ghana. They were the ones who instigated the meeting in Tama that decided on the May-June closure. We invited him, we invited other stakeholders, and we made the presentation again to them. After the presentation, the NAFAC chairman said that if we had shown them those slides at the Tama meeting, they wouldn't have decided on May 2. They would have gone for the August.
All right.
Closing. So this made us write a letter. You know, the SFMP, the Sustainable Fisheries Management Project, which set us up, they wrote a letter based on the discussions at the meeting on 14th of March this year to the minister. The letter was, taken by the chief of party of SFMP to the minister.
Prof,
suggesting that.
Yeah, Prof. To be fair to this administration, you concede that this is about in fact, this is the first time we're actually implementing this closed season and going ahead to do that. Government now says that the closed season for the trawlers will happen in August. Will that help in any way?
The point is that if you close the trawlers in August, what are the implications? The trawlers are registered to fish offshore in deep waters and target demersal fish. The closed season is not targeted at demersal fish. It is targeted at the small pelagic, which constitute close to 70% of our marine fisheries resource. And so if you close the trawlers who are not supposed to catch small pelagic in August, you are not helping anybody.
So what happens to, Prof, are you going to still stick around next year to keep advising as part of this group when really your advice is not taking?
Well, we have given advice based on our scientific findings. And, we wish the government would have heeded the advice, because if we are doing something for the first time, the impact should be visible for the people to be encouraged to agree to subsequent closures in the coming year.
So, Prof, the question I'm asking...
This is not the first time closed season has been used to rebuild a dwindling stock.
All right, Prof.
It has been done in various countries. And, when you go to the U.S., that is what they have done to rebuild their stock. The Philippines, they've done the same thing. Morocco, Mauritania, Guinea-Conakry, Senegal, they have all used the closed season, and they have done it at the time that the target fish is at the peak spawning season. And this is where you have the visible results, because it is the breeding, the reproduction, which will produce the young ones, which will be recruited into the stock. And if you don't close the season at the time that they are breeding, what are you doing?
Yeah.
In May, June, the fish, even if they are there at all, they are not in reproductive condition.
Yeah.
And they will not even be there. So we really don't understand why they have settled the closure for May, June.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Kobna Yangsing. Professor Kobna Yangsing is chairman of the Scientific and Technical Working Group of the Scientific and Technical Working Group of the Sustainable Fisheries Project. Now, moving on, government has been alerted to brace for more angry demonstrations following disturbances in Takwa in the western region over poor roads. Sounding out the warning, a contractor, Joseph Ebo-Huting, who is a former national chairman of the Association of Road Contractors, was emphatic that disturbances in Takwa is just the beginning. Speaking on the Super Morning Show, he explained that almost 90% of road projects are at a standstill, though contracts have been awarded.
Minister for Roads and Highways said in 2018 the ministry has awarded road contracts worth 6.5 billion after the Akufo-Addo government was sworn in 2017. The sum covered 258 roads and 20 bridge projects, totaling a little over 3,000 kilometers. But Ebo-Huting, former national chairman of the Association of Road Contractors, indicated contractors would go to site for some 2 or 3 months and retreat over stalled payments. According to him, they have learned the hard way that government payments are delayed and revealed several occasions when it took government close to 3 years to receive payments for constructing a phase of an awarded road contract. He said no bank in the country is ready to give a contractor loans to finance a Government of Ghana project because of the chronic delays by government in honoring financial obligations.
This problem of demonstrations and protests and all of this that have started, I can tell you, it's just the beginning. Because the fact is that almost 90 to 95% of road projects are at a standstill. So you see contractors go to sites, maybe they work for about a month or two, and then they withdraw because of the problem of payment. And so, yes, the ministry would announce that they've awarded contracts and all of this to contractors to go and work. But in actual fact, the contractors are not working. Because number one, we are not sure when we are going to be paid. Number two, you go to the banks and no bank in this country is ready or prepared to give any contractor a loan to finance a Government of Ghana project. So yes, as businessmen, when these projects are advertised, they hoping that maybe the situation will change. And if nothing is happening, they just withdraw. And that is what is happening.
Mr. Houghton touched on the increase in government's preference for asphalting roads.
The ministry is doing a lot of asphalting. Please go check how much 1 kilometer of asphalt costs. And unfortunately, a lot of this asphalt is being placed on roads which have started developing potholes already. And so it means that if the roads are developing potholes, in most cases, it means that the base has become weak. So if you go and put asphalt, you patch the pothole and put asphalt on it, within the next, yes, aesthetically it looks nice. But within a short period, you realize that the road has started corrugating. When that happens, it means that asphalt is not going to last the period which we expect it to last. Asphalt is normally supposed to last between 15 and 20 years, which is good. But before you put asphalt on a road, just make sure that the road is well prepared and able to take it. This asphalt is so expensive. I can tell you 1 kilometer of asphalt can probably take care of about 5 kilometers of surface. Yes, everybody wants asphalt. But we have to let the people know the truth that asphalt is expensive and we can do it gradually. But unfortunately, it's become a political tool. And this started in 2016. Asphalt all over. And so now every community is asking for asphalt. And government cannot finance asphalt all over. Because the road fund which is supposed to be used to pay that thing, it is also incumbent. There isn't enough money in the road fund.
Meanwhile, on Wednesday, residents of Takwa and Shaim in the western region, clad in red bands, chanted war songs as they blocked the main road that links their community to Takwa Day. Billows of smoke from the burning car tires lightened the otherwise dark atmosphere in the early hours of the morning. Agitated young men kept adding combustible materials to the flames to keep it alive. The demonstrators, who appeared restless and held placards and other offensive objects, moved in groups and kept torching one road point after another. Residents say the dusty nature of the road is affecting their health.
Road from Wasaguna to Bogosi Junction, 16.5 kilometer road. I've been giving a contract for over a year now. Nothing has been done. And people are smelling so many dust and it's causing so many sicknesses. So, as a consensus of this business that is in, we try to organize ourselves to come up with this demonstration, a peaceful demonstration, to demonstrate to the government. We are not also here for any political reason. We are also here to demonstrate against the MP, but we are here at the city of Takwa to demonstrate against the government, of this country. That's why, that's the main reason why we are here this morning.
Minority spokesperson on Roads and Transport Kwame Agboja is questioning the credibility of the value for money audit government says it is conducted on the $2 billion SINOHYDRO project. He says the Ghana Institute of Surveyors is not the appropriate institution to conduct the audit on government projects. Though he admits there isn't a specific legal requirement for value for money audits to be conducted on projects, he says it has been a convention for sole-sourced projects.
I saw something attributed to Ghana Institute of Surveyors, though there's not a lead consultant who actually signed and can confirm that he or she did it, because I have serious issues in some even what has been put on social media, because I would like to know the individual who was the lead consultant who carried out the audit, so that I can engage him. But the report I saw on social media only had a telephone number of Ghana Institute of Surveyors, which is unusual, because even in a consultancy firm, there must be somebody who actually endorses things that go out. So that is missing. I think this is a desperate attempt by the government to pretend that something has been done. There are 10 different laws. This is a desperate attempt by government to actually muddy the waters by saying, oh, you have this. Let them publish all of them and tell us who was the lead consultant to carry out this. And the thing is Ghana Institute of Surveyors now the accredited institution of government to do value for money? Because it will be quite instructive.
You should have done it.
Well, there are accredited and known institutions in this country. Normally, we go to crown agents and others. That is what we.
So even if it's been done, you have a problem with the credibility.
Exactly.
Because it's not the GIS that's supposed to do.
Exactly. And you see, the reason is that, like I said yesterday, there can be somebody who is an architect, but is not qualified to practice.
The minority in Parliament is demanding to know the whereabouts of the Majority Leader, Osei Sambonsu, who has not been in the House this week. Minority Chief Whip Muntaka Mubarak says the Majority Leader has no business travelling out of the country after extending sitting for a week. But Deputy Majority Leader Jasafo has in return been questioning the whereabouts of the Minority Leader. Both leaders had travelled to Qatar to attend a meeting of the Interparliamentary Union last week, but Muntaka Mubarak says the Majority Leader has travelled out again.
The Majority Leader who thought there is so much business in this South Africa to be done has not been here. The Speaker, my worry is if all other persons or members of Parliament will cancel their programs to stay in this House, I thought the Majority Leader who thought it was important that this House secrecy should be followed here. And the Speaker, Monday today, that's 3 days gone, and I'm glad to inform he traveled last night. Mr. Speaker, it may be important for his trip, but for him to ask us to stay for additional week whilst he does not find necessary to cancel his program to stay in this House. Mr. Speaker, I think that is not a very fair question. And I think it's important that I bring your attention to this, because when we were insisting that let's rise because of other important programs, he insisted that this week was critical to do some other business. As critical as it may be, I do not understand why he would not find necessary to equally cancel this program so that all of us will be here. Speaker, you admit to the fact that if I cannot speak to anybody, I can speak for myself. Committed and dedicated to stay every time, early in the morning, from beginning to the end, and most of the time trying to help this House run. And we thought that at least the majority that we do was, since he opted for this week to be added, will have stayed the whole of this week to help the House run the business. Our President, Mr. Speaker, is been absent throughout this week. And it's hard hope that the House takes note of this. That next time, when it's insisting that we add additional week, and we insist that it's great, the House will understand why we are afraid.
And I'm Israel. Thank you very much for watching. You have a good night.